Hello, Ruby. We're going to take a look at your emotive squares posting, give you a bit of observation and feedback on there. So let's move our elements over and we're looking at the screen. So first, good job on your titling there, your name underscore emotive squares. I would just ask to have maybe an indication of your last name, whether it's the initials or that type of thing. Not that I won't recognize, I know just about everybody here. I don't think we have multiple first names to anybody, but it's just good practice to keep your name very unique. And so making sure that you include just maybe your last initials or whatnot, that's going to be very helpful. So that's just a pointer for upcoming. Now, looking at your work here, these are probably one of the best crafted presentations that I've seen. In other words, you've got this just very clean sort of look to everything that you're putting together, the black squares versus the white background. The organization of the way that you're putting them all together seems very, very good. Even the cutouts, while a few of them have a little bumps on them, they seem to be pretty well clean, that type of thing. So in terms of just the kind of craft and how you've put them together, these are very, very good. So let's talk a little bit about the actual energies that are going on here. Now, with each of these, we want to think about what is the basic nature of these topics. The topics, tension and lonely and congestion and heavy, these are subjects, right? These are the subject is that. Now, content is in a lot of ways like not really addressed in this project. We're not thinking about that. We're just really taking a subject, which is a topic, and then giving it a physical manifestation. The content really begins with the interaction of the audience. That's when the content starts to happen there. So this project being more of an exercise, it's sort of like the difference between doing skill drills for a sport and then playing the actual sport. This is more like a skill drill than the sport itself. So looking at what you're doing, tension is really all about an energy, right? It tends to be about a static energy, which means that it's either pushing or pulling. Now, notice how I've done that, right? Pushing or pulling, right? Now, I have how my arms and how the lines of my body changed. Now, this is music. Music offers these kinds of things as well. Dance offers this. I mean, someone doing a gesture like from here to there gives you a gesture that kind of break the tension. Now, here's the thing is most people are using tension in terms of things coming together rather than pulling apart, but either one could be so. And, most of these are coming together. It looks like you're aiming the tension toward like that rather than trying to pull it apart. I'd be interested to see how you approach the other. This is actually a very effective version of the tension because what you're doing is you're not getting in the touch. You're getting in the touch, get very, very close to one another, and therefore you're increasing the activity. Add to that the idea that you're using these diagonals. Everything is a diagonal within the composition, and so therefore there's a ton of energy, and it's all being forced to this one point. So that's an excellent version of tension. This almost becomes too symmetrical in order to become tension, and so there's a certain relief to that, which we wouldn't want. We want to get the energy there. Lonely. Let's look at lonely for a moment here, because lonely is a tough one. Because lonely is an emotion rather than a like tension. Tension, I guess, could be an emotion. I feel tense, but heavy is more of a physical thing. But lonely, how is that? What's the difference between isolation and lonely? Being isolated is different than being lonely. Being isolated is, I'm isolated right here, right? I'm just me. So I'm one element. But what might contribute to the idea of loneliness or lonely would be the idea of not just being by yourself, but being by yourself and being sort of different, being sort of unique in that. And so looking at these as far as is lonely, this doesn't give us any comparative. So this one doesn't really work very well. But this gives us a bit more of a comparative. And it gives us that comparative in that the small element there is straight up and down, and is squared up, and then the others are all diagonal, and so therefore that their orientation is different, and so that extends this sort of separation right beyond that. Now, we're doing nothing with composition here. These are just elements floating on the page. And I think you could probably explore that to get a little bit more of a dynamic activity. You really knocked it through the park here, did a beautiful job, but these lonely ones don't quite do that, right? You're not quite getting to that level on the lonely one as far as engaging the whole picture frame. Think of it like this. Here I've got this frame you're seeing in me. From here to here is the frame, and then here to here is the frame. And I want to engage this whole space, not just have an element sort of hovering in the middle. No matter how exciting that is, it would just be a hovering in the middle, right? I've got this element here in the composition. It happens to be there. However, I did orient my screens and so that it would be lined up in a particular way that might balance with me, rather than just having me against a blank gray wall, which I could have done, right? I could just turn my thing this way and you'd see over here. But instead, something to activate the space a little bit as I'm moving around, right? So activating the entire space is really what we want to try to do in this second part when you're making the photographs. Moving down to playful. Now, playful, you're actually thinking, at least in these, I can see an organization that's happening. That tells me that you're approaching playful from the sense of a game, right? And games tend to have a structure. There's a difference between just seeing kids randomly running around a park, right? There's no order to it. They're just kids just running outside, right? Almost think of it like school's out and the door's open and all these kids start running out, right? They're maybe going in a direction, but there's no particular order to that. When you have organized order, you're actually, it's a game with rules and this is happening, and that could be playful. You're playing this game. And so when you're offering me these patterns, right, the grid, the tic-tac-toe sort of pattern there, this ordered pattern, I'm thinking that, but I'm making an effort to get there. So the question is, would an audience get there? And that's really what you want to ask yourself. These are fine designs. I mean, this is a very nice pattern here. This is a really quite an interesting pattern you got going on with this one, those kinds of things. But the question would be, how do you get it to evoke the sort of belief, the sort of blissful glee that you get from just pure play, right? Pure play. Is it really all organization or is it not? Heavy, you got some really strong ones here as well. This is an excellent one here for a lot of reasons that we've already talked about. You're engaging the whole picture plane. You've got this element that's sort of leading you down. The only thing is I think we would benefit from the composition feeling like it's a little bit lower. Right now, you've got a lot of energy up here in that composition. And as it goes down, it kind of gets lighter. And so therefore, the composition feels heavier at the top than at the bottom, which gives us a weight, right? I mean, I see what you're doing there. But even more visually, if we could somehow pull the composition down just a little bit more, or a lot more, so the whole composition felt heavy, not just the elements in the composition felt heavy. All this stuff is really what I'm talking about, are how I'm arriving at determining if I'm seeing an effective design or not. Not just telling you what I think, but telling you how I'm arriving at what I think. That's important, and I'll talk about that a little bit more once I get through the rest of your pieces here. Congested. Now, congested, again, is an idea, and that idea is based on movement. So congestion is a movement, right? Things are moving, but in some point in that movement, it's being blocked or stopped or built up, right? That's it. That's the idea. That's the visual. Think about what does that look like, and then you design it. That's it. That's the process. Congestion. I need it to feel that way. What is it? What's congestion? So that's what you want to get at. And the question, what I ask myself as I'm looking at these, is which one does that? Which one feels congested, and it's going to be this one, right? Because we've got a movement, it's aiming down, you're sort of almost creating an hourglass, I guess, kind of thing, but without actually an hourglass. I don't think you're being illustrative here at all, but I get the idea that things are meant to kind of be sifted down into this area and that they're not getting there because they're sort of blocked up. So that's a good one, and for that reason, that's how I'm arriving at that, is that it feels that way. Some of these others, while this is an awesome design, a real kind of nod to what we call the Mondrian, and look that up, Mondrian, and you'll see what I mean. And it was a painter whose sort of design sense became a style. Imagine that, like your work became a whole style in and of itself. Anyway, the most effective is going to be this one to get the topic across, which is what we're aiming for. Now, I notice here that you haven't yet replied to the feedback, and let's talk a little bit about that. Let's not about the fact that you didn't reply, but what is feedback and why? So feedback, what do you do with it, right? What is it that you're trying to get out of feedback? Most of the time, someone, you show someone something, right? You make a thing and you show it to them, and you've got an idea of what your expectation is. And then the viewer comes back with their response, right? And so you've got you, and then you got, here's the response, or maybe here's the response, or maybe here's the response. And a lot of times what happens is you are trying to figure out, okay, what's the gap, right? You're focusing on this gap. I wanted this, they got that, how far away is it? And, you're trying to maybe grab hold of them and pull them over to you by talking about how what you did, you want them to think A, B, and C. And that is helpful, I suppose, in a way, just to figure out what that gap is, or at least to recognize, yeah, they're there. But what happens if it's like there is no gap? What if they got exactly what you wanted, right? What if they're telling you exactly that they see exactly what you would hope them to? Right? Does it mean that you're like, okay, done, I don't have to think about it anymore, I achieved it? Instead, what you want to do is consider them. How did they arrive at their observation? How did they get there, right? Because we don't want to take for granted just that, well, they got there because I showed them what I showed them. What if they got there by some other means, right? Despite what you put, that didn't affect them. It was something else that got them to where you wanted them to go. I think I would want to know that, right? I would want to know, how do they arrive at their conclusion or observation? And that's your work. That's what you're trying to do. Whether they are far apart from you, you still forget about you, how they get to where they are. And if you can figure that out, then the next work you do can target that, and then you can work more on this other objective that you didn't quite get. Or if they're right on top of you, you want to figure out what you did, or not what you did, or what they saw and how they got there. That's your work as the receiver, and then you turn it around as someone offering feedback to someone else. What's your job? Your job is to offer them authentic and genuine feedback, feedback that is, meant to be helpful, not hurtful, of course. But, me telling you this is good, this is not good, doesn't help you, right? Or I like this, it's really cool. That's a nice compliment, but it doesn't get you anywhere. And so, as you notice, as I was talking about it, and I brought it up actually, I'm not just telling you what I'm seeing, but I'm offering you how I'm getting there, right? I'm saying these are the reasons that I am observing this thing. And the point of that is to help you to target that next time. So the next time that you are set up and you're thinking, I have this topic, what are some of the strategies I can use in order to get there? You draw upon your experience, you draw upon the feedback others have given you to get there. And so that's what you're doing as someone offering feedback, is you're telling your peers about what you observe, and you're also trying to help them understand how you got there. Not whether they're right or wrong, but how you arrived at your observation. So that's it. That's what I wanted to offer you in this video. You'll have a letter grade, a form that I give. I think I gave you, you've seen them before. I gave them to the 110 with like a rubric grade and all of that. You'll get that. But I hope this was helpful for you, and that you got something out of it. Clearly, that's the point. And so I hope you enjoy the rest of the semester. I appreciate the work you did on there, especially the craft is excellent. And we'll see you in class. All right, Ruby, take care. Bye-bye now.